guitars. This is week 5 of the behind the scenes workshop diaries vlog. So far this week we've begun doing the finishing process on the 2 guitars I was making. So I'll show a little clip here, be applying the finish to the backs of the guitars. This is the new finishing process where I use an epoxy sealer. I've found it's been pretty good. So what it helps do is when you're applying oil straight to the bare wood, any end grain or even patches of soundboards can kind of soak up the finish quicker or more thoroughly than other areas, so you kind of have to go back over and reapply and stuff. So with the epoxy sealer, that's meant that the oil application is a lot more uniform. It doesn't draw in because the epoxy is already sealed up all the grain, so it's easy to get a kind of more even uniform finish when doing that method. So I might actually pick it up for future builds as well. It seems to have gone very well. So to have something to talk about this week, I've recently received a new delivery of lots of different types of soundboards, so I thought it'd be fun to go through, do a little tap test and let you guys hear the difference between the different options that are available, really. So we have here Sitka Spruce. It's a classic. It's used for hundreds of years. Always very good if you want something that shoots right down the middle. Usually have a lot more high end to it, while Cedars and stuff would have a bit more kind of bass and mid-range. And then we've got a Torrefied Sitka top. So Torrefied woods are where they're heat treated. They're kept in a nitrogen rich environment and then heated to, I think it's 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that does, not only does it change the color of the woods, but it acts like a more of an aging process. So it makes the soundboard sound much older than it actually is. So when they're brand new, they don't have that breaking in period that a lot of Sitka tops would have, or spruces. Where more you play, the better it sounds. This kind of fast tracks that, so it already sounds great straight out the gun. And it has a lovely color, so it's more vintage look. And it also smells really good as well. They smell like kind of toasted marshmallows or toasted nuts or something. It's really nice, especially when you're working on it. And then we have here aged cedar and western red cedar. So these two are the same material, the same woods, but this one here is aged with a nitrogen gas, I believe. It's not the same process as torrefication. I don't think there's heat involved. So instead of it altering the tonal characteristics, it just alters the color. And this is what I've been using on the fanfret baritone you've been seeing me make the last few weeks. And then, last but not least, is an Adirondack top, but again this is a Torrefied one, so it's got that nice deep caramel color, and again this will have a lot of the similar properties as the Torrefied Sitka has, where it's been rapidly aged. It should sound just great straight out the go. So that's a master grade top there, so I'm looking forward to getting used to that. So I'll just go through and I'll try and explain a little on how I choose my tops or what characteristics I'm looking for, because sometimes you can even just be picking them up. You can kind of just hear if they're going to be quite musical or not. So that's always a good sign. If you pick one up and it doesn't really have any kind of sparkle, one person I spoke to once described it as, you want your soundboards to sound like a box of Rice Krispies. That kind of like it seems very responsive. Even to the lightest touch you can get a kind of musicality out of it, so that's always very important. Then of course you want to look for stiffness across the grain and also across the lengthways of the grain. Obviously once the soundboard's strung up and under tension, the bridge will be pulling on the guitar like this, so you want the length of the grain to be strong enough so that it doesn't collapse under itself, basically. Obviously if you have a soundboard that's ever so slightly more flexible lengthways, you can alter the bracing, make the X brace a little heavier, increase the support around the sound hole, things like that, just to kind of counteract it. But if you get a stiff board straight out the gate, it means you can make all your braces a lot lighter, and then that should help make the soundboard more active. So always check for the stiffness this way and this way across the grain. Now, normally with soundboards, the inner piece, the part where you join, will be the more quartered section, and that's actually the outside of the tree. When they come to cut the trees down, that's usually the bit which is the outer face of the tree. So you'll find that usually these areas are much stiffer, and then it usually tails off if you get a kind of medium grade board to the end there, which again isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, because that'll be kind of at the outside of the body, and a little bit more flexibility in that area might even help the sound projection of the instrument. A lot of the time when you're making instruments, the edges usually get thinned out anyway as you're scraping bindings and doing all the cleanup and stuff. So the center of the soundboard, where the bridge will most likely be the thickest section of the soundboard, and then it'll feather out to the edges. So right, I'm going to pop my headphones on so I can hear it, and I'll give a few tap tests so you'll be able to hear the difference between the Sitka and the Torrefied, and then the aged Cedar and the standard Cedar. There shouldn't be a whole lot of difference there, hopefully. And then the master grade Adirondack, just so you have a little soundscape for you. So here's some ASMR, I think it's called. This is Sitka Spruce. So what you should hear there is a sort of low fundamental note that kind of rings out and slowly decays over time. So then we'll move on to the Torrefied top, Torrefied Sitka. So that side by side seems to have a kind of lower kind of frequency point to it, but by touch it feels not more brittle, but there's a kind of feels more quick to respond to the touch I have. So the kind of like sharpness of when you're touching the woods, you can feel the kind of quickness of response really for the vibrations that you're putting into it. So then again we'll go for the standard Sitka and a Torrefied Sitka. Okay, so now we'll move on to Western Red Cedar, which is this kind of pinky orangey colour, and then the aged Cedar, which is this darker colour here. So again, there's a kind of brightness to it. There's just a kind of like a crispiness to it, like a quick response to touch, which is always good. And this board is dead stiff across the grain and lengthways, which is always very nice. So that sounds much lower than the Sitka did, and it also seems to have a bit of a longer decay to it as well. So all these different elements you can tailor in when designing your materials for a guitar to get the best response you're looking for. So here is the aged Cedar. And that one to me feels like it has a real good bass rumble to it. You can feel it in your hand more than hear it, I think. So, two very strong top options. And then last but not least, there is the Torrefied Adirondack top. Now I haven't got a standard Adirondack to compare to. This board is rock solid, both lengthways and widthways. So once the finish is on, I can kind of see the medullary raise, which is when you know your soundboard's cut quarter. You can get these really nice lengthways kind of patterning going through it. So whenever I see a guitar in the shop, I would kind of check just visually for those. You can get it on Cedars and Spruces as well. Normally you'd see it more or less in the middle, and then the more expensive the top, the better the top even. The more these little dashes, these little rays will be across the soundboard, and that will show how quartered that soundboard is. So here. So that has a very nice decay and a good fundamental note. And this is the Torrefied Sitka. So that's decay. Isn't quite as strong as this one. But again, I'm sure they'll make absolutely gorgeous guitars. So if you have any questions regarding materials or what I would prefer one over another, I guess I would say they each have their own specialties, their own kind of areas of strengths and weaknesses. So if you want a fantastic all-rounder, Sitka Spruce is it's the easiest choice really. It ticks a whole lot of boxes, and as I said, it kind of gets better with age, which is always quite rewarding when you play a guitar in. So then if you want to upgrade from there, the Torrefied Sitka is a fantastic place to go. Gets your guitar fantastic, brand new, and you have to play it in to make it sound better. It has a lot more kind of complexities and richness to it, like an older instrument would have. Western Red Cedar is a brilliant top, I'd say, for more kind of fingerstyle playing, as it has a lot of that bassy, rumbling low notes, lots of good overtones. And then if you wanted one that's a bit more characteristic in look, the aged Cedar, like I've using on the baritone build, I chose everything to be real dark to give a real rich overall look for the instrument. And then if you want all the bells and whistles, I think this Torrefied Adirondack top, I think this is going to be an absolute cracker of a guitar. I've just got to figure out what to pair it with. So yeah, if you have any questions or queries regarding any guitar making topics or anything you just want to ask, feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll answer them in a future video. Well, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week.